Welcome to a world where particles, vibrations, and light collide, a place where leading industry experts and healers come together to discuss controversial topics that will challenge your beliefs and expand your mind. From quantum physics to metaphysics, no topic is off limits, but this is not your typical podcast.
I'd like to know if you could give us some pointers on dealing with the triggers.
Well, remember, you can't get triggered unless you have a belief that you can be triggered, right? The triggers happen when we feel like we have no control. The triggers happen when we feel like we're a victim. The triggers happen when we feel like somebody's in our space, right? Those are all triggers. And so if you understand, if you're able to stay in the space of, it's an interesting thought you've got.
It's a show guaranteed to make you question your assumptions and push you to expand your horizons. For those who are already fascinated or passionate about the work of Patti Conklin, this show will give you an inside look into the mind of one of the industry's most renowned figures in vibrational mediation. With over 28 years of experience and a long list of big-name collaborations, Patti's insights and perspectives will inspire and challenge even the most seasoned practitioners. And if you're the skeptic who doesn't believe in vibrational mediation, this show is for you. Healers, doctors, and scientists are just a few of the professions represented by our fascinating visitors that bring their unique perspective to every episode. Join us on this journey into the world of healing within and adventure inside. Our mission is to inspire, challenge, and enlighten our audience with thought-provoking conversations and fascinating guests from a wide range of fields who can shed new light on important issues facing society today. Join us for each episode if you're ready to explore and learn about the latest developments at the intersection of cutting-edge science, spirituality, and self-improvement. Enter a world where waves, particles, and light all meet. Enter the world of healing within and adventure inside.
Thank you so much for joining me today and my wonderful guest. I know we're going to learn a lot from her, so I'm looking forward to it. Her name is Lauren Walker, and I know nothing more about her than her name. And I like it that way because I like to learn as you learn, as the audience learns. So Lauren, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Patti. Thank you for having me.
So tell us about you.
I'm a energy medicine yoga teacher, and I'm actually the creator of energy medicine yoga. And so I was a yoga teacher for many years. I lived all over the world. I traveled. I had a very rich and full life and continue to. And I came to a crossroads at one point in my yoga studies where I was experiencing a lot of trauma and a lot of stress and not really able to overcome those with the traditional yoga practice that I had been doing. And so I really knew that I needed something more. And so I was kind of wondering what I was going to do, what was going to help me get to the next phase of my life. And serendipity, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it, interrupted my life. And within 2 months, in 2 different countries, 2 different people introduced me to the work of Donna Eden. And I started to learn what energy is. And that changed everything for me. It changed my yoga practice. It changed the trajectory of what I was going to do for the next chunk of time. And I ended up doing quite a lot of healing and wrote now 3 books on energy medicine yoga. And this newest one just came out. And I might sneak off set for a moment and grab it and show it to you. But because I'm really proud of it and I'm really excited about it. And one of the reasons is that we are in a place in the world right now, I believe, where we are in dire straits. We're in real trouble. And it's beyond now, henny penny, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Like, this is real. There's real issues going on for everybody all over the planet, no matter what country you're in. Here in the United States, we've got major issues going on right now. But we get also a little solipsistic. Like, if you live in the United States, it's just, this is us. We are all that exist, right? But the rest of the world is also going through incredible turmoil. And it's not just the lingering, continual COVID effects, but it's political unrest and environmental unrest, like everywhere. There's trauma and there is stress at unprecedented levels. And so while I wish that weren't the case, I'm very happy and proud that this new book that I just wrote really speaks to that, speaks to this moment that we're in right now, and offers real tools and solutions for people to be able to navigate these challenging times.
Right. I mean, I know this is crazy, but there's still people out there who have never heard of yoga, much less energy medicine yoga. So for the people listening who really don't know much about yoga, let's start there and then add in the energy medicine piece, because energy medicine is my love. So I love that you've combined the two, but talk to people about the benefits of yoga.
So yoga is a 5,000-year-old practice and tradition, and it has been, it sort of came over to this country late 1800s, but 1900s really kind of started to, get big here. In 1960, some people point to as a date that it really started to take hold here. And of course, today, yoga is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's like Starbucks. On every corner, there's a yoga studio. And why is that? Yoga is a really specific practice. And the ultimate goal is to bring yourself into union. That's what the word means. So it's to bring the body, mind, and spirit into one embodied thing.
Yeah.
Thing isn't the best word, but and you do that through a series of practices, breathing practices, meditation practices, physical practices, which are called asana, which is kind of where most of the yoga has gone in the world today. And so yoga has become untextualized from what it was originally intended to do, which is an energetic and spiritual practice, including the physical, because the physical is spiritual, right?
Right.
And it's become really like a gym workout in a lot of scenarios. Now that's starting to shift a little bit because we've seen incredible injuries come from yoga, which is the antithesis of yoga. But we've also seen a lot of studies showing the benefits of yoga, benefits of breathing practices, benefits of meditation practices. And so yoga, it's accessible, it's wonderful, it's fun to practice, it's empowering. And that's why it's so popular.
Yeah.
And I studied it for years and had all of these benefits and wonderful experiences and everything. And yet, it wasn't touching these core bedrock issues of stress and trauma that I was suffering from. And so that's where the energy medicine came in. And even though yoga is an energetic practice, it's not really taught that way so much anymore. And if it is, it's taught in a very esoteric way. Like these are these deep hidden practices. You have to have, a PhD in yoga before you can access them and all of that.
Right.
Well, that's not right. And then I started studying energy medicine, and it was like, this is your birthright. It's easy. It's simple. Everyone can do it. The effects are sometimes immediate and oftentimes incredibly transformative and powerful. I had never heard anything about that. And I went down that rabbit hole for years. And, but as soon as I sort of stepped into the rabbit hole, I started combining the two together because I was still practicing yoga, although I had taken a 7-year teaching sabbatical. I was practicing yoga, and then I was practicing energy medicine. And I thought, well, I don't have a ton of time. I'm just going to do them both at the same time and see what happens. And there were a few things that really spoke to each other. Like, wow, when I'm doing this yoga pose, it really looks like this energy medicine technique. Or I'm doing this energy medicine technique and it looks so similar. And I think I'd feel so comfortable if I was sitting in this yoga pose. So that's sort of how it started. I kind of put a couple things together and then a couple more and a couple more until I realized this is actually its own thing. It's not me anymore kind of cherry picking a couple things.
Right.
It started to teach me what it wanted me to do and learn. And that's how it all began.
Wow. So you've written 3 books. Talk to me about those. What was the first one?
So the first one is after this experimentation and practicing on myself, really, primarily because I hadn't been teaching. And then I went back to teaching, and I was teaching at a military college in Vermont. And it's sort of the total opposite of the yoga demographic, right? Which is basically women between the ages of, say, 30 and 70, right? That's the main yoga demographic. And here I was teaching to primarily men, the ages of 17 to 22.
Wow.
My demographic shift radically. So I had 90% men, 10% women, where it's usually 90% women, 10% men.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, so I was teaching there, and these students had no idea of anything, yoga or energy medicine. So I came in and they just did whatever I was teaching them, because they didn't have anything to kind of gauge it against or resist. There was no resistance, because they were just, well, this is the class. I'm just doing what's in the class. And the experiences that they had were mind-blowing to me. And so I started at that point to write everything down, codify it, put this, like, this is a practice. How do you do this practice? And because I was teaching at a military college, I broke it into 8 weeks, so 8 weeks of basic training. And so I put that down. I wrote the whole thing, and I shared it with my mentor and teacher, Donna Eden. She loved it. She said, this is amazing, and this needs to be out in the world. And so she gave it to 2 of her publishers, and one of them bought it, and that's the first book.
Awesome.
And that was so successful right away. It was translated into a bunch of different languages that they immediately signed a contract with me to write a second book. And this one, they wanted practices to heal anything. And I was like, and everything, not just anything, everything.
Everything.
And I was like, okay, that's a huge order, but let me see what I can do.
Right.
And there's a system in energy medicine and energy medicine yoga. We have 9 energy systems in the body. And one of those systems is, it's sort of a way of looking at everything in the world and bringing it into very simple analyses through 5 different lenses, or called elements. It's called 5-element theory. And it breaks everything down, including every part of your body, mind, and spirit. And I thought, well, if there's something wrong or out of balance in some area in your life, causing a problem, a disease, a depression, anything that's going on, well, that also has to fall into one of these 5 areas. And so if you did these practices that were specific to the area where you were out of balance, maybe we could bring you into balance and let the body do what the body does, which is heal. And that's what the second book is.
Wow. So third book
just came out, and it is called The Energy to Heal. And it is about healing trauma and stress. Because through my research and experiential practices, what I was seeing is that most disease patterns in the body are attributed to stress. And we know that now, right? You go to the doctor and, you know, it's the number one cause of diseases. And they'll say to you, anything that you've got to take your stress down. But it is the cause of so many diseases in the body. Well, the number one cause of stress in the body is undigested emotional experiences. And so our traumas and our stresses are directly correlated to our disease patterns in our lives.
Yes.
So if we can deal with and learn ways to mitigate, and not just mitigate, but release, completely release and heal from traumatic experiences, from our stressful experiences, then we can have much better health outcomes and a much better holistic life in general. I mean, certainly when you're healed of a disease, you have a better life. But if you don't have a disease pattern, but you're still stressed out and traumatized, your life is really challenging. And it might be heading towards some illness in the future. So that's the rest of the book.
Right. And it's also, you know, I mean, my core teaching is that every illness we have begins in an emotional core and adds on. And what I found through the years, it's not just trauma, it's belief systems and behaviors, judgment being a huge one of people feeling like they need to judge, or they feel like they're being judged, and that shuts them down, and our cells stop growing, and, you know, and everything starts to back up within the system, within the whole energetic system. And then they start, you know, we finally reach a point where current diagnostic capabilities can identify or put a label on it, and then people get scared of the label, and that in and of itself then creates another whole set of problems, challenges. So when you're looking at take an energetic yoga pose, is there a pose that is more beneficial to a certain emotional base?
Mm-hmm.
Talk
Yes.
to me about that.
Yes, absolutely. And I love what you just said, that, you know, that emotions are the drivers to disease, and that it takes a long time for Western diagnostics to pick that up. And so you have that growing in you, making you unwell for years. I think I read something once that cancer is living in the body for 17 years before you are able to pick it up.
Yeah.
And so, wow, how great if we could get rid of that before that.
Exactly.
So, so that 5-element theory that I talked about, the second book is based on, it's also the lens that I use for the third book. And if you start to get involved in energy medicine yoga, you'll understand that this system is so valuable and so powerful, and we can use it to kind of overlay as a roadmap for many different things. And so the roadmap in this book is dealing with stress and trauma. And so in those 5 categories, each one of them has an umbrella emotion that, you know, we've got hundreds of emotions, but there's these umbrella emotions, and underneath them are all of the other kind of pieces of that.
Yeah.
And so each of these elements has a pose that is designed specifically to release the energetic charge of that specific emotion. And there's sounds that come with that as well. And those sounds are ancient. They're from ancient Chinese medicine. And they're also created to move energy out of the organs that are part of that system. So it's really powerful. You're working to move energy from the organs, from the meridian system, from the whole energetic system, so that you can be clear, harmonious, coherent, all of those good things that we want.
Right. And so talk to me about, how long did it take you to write your third book? What was the basis? Because you clearly have a deep love for your latest creation.
Yeah, you know, it's sort of my trauma story is how that book came to be. So I had several traumatic experiences in my life, and right before the second book came out, right after the first book came out, I had a massive traumatic event in my life where my former fiance, who was still my best friend, was murdered by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police up in Canada. Wow. And it was spread across all the newspapers and magazines and radio, and everyone was calling me for interviews, and it just sent me to the bottom of the well. I don't even actually still remember to this day how I was able to sign a contract for that second book, because that came, you know, several months after. But writing that book was a savior for me, because it gave me a focus for that first horrible year.
Yeah.
But it didn't bring me to the healing, because this was so deep. And what happens when we have traumatic experiences, they resonate with all of the past traumatic experiences that we've had. And if we don't have the tools to release this energy, we keep drawing trauma to us. This is one of the hallmarks of trauma survivors. And, you know, you could think, oh, wow, that person's really unlucky. I can't believe they had this. But it's not luck, it's field theory. Yes. And it wasn't until I understood field theory that I started to get my way out of this. So obviously I already had a lot of tools. I'd created tools. I wrote the book of tools. Right. But they weren't enough yet. And so I was like on the call a friend, you know, I need help. Who can I bring in? What practices, what techniques, what can I do to further this? And so I had to really dig deep in everything and find a way to move myself out of this. Yeah. And that final piece was understanding field theory and understanding, okay, I am in one really crappy field right now, and I need to get out of that. And And once I learned what that means, studied the work of Rupert Sheldrake and learned what fields are, morphogenic fields, and how this all operates, then I was able to make the steps and the changes. So this book really was my journal of like, save my life, help me save my life. God, goddess, universe, whoever you call and pray to. And I called and prayed to everyone, every God, I was like, help, somebody help me. So that book was my journal, really. And I never thought I was going to publish it. It saved my life. It transformed my life. And that was it. And then I gave it to one of my best friends, and she read it and she said, Lauren, you have to publish this book.
Yeah.
And then I sent it to my editor and she said, Lauren, you have to publish this book. And so I thought, Lauren, maybe you should publish this book. And now I'm really, really glad that I did. It's such a personal book. It's so deeply personal, and it's also universal.
Yeah.
I don't really tell my story in the book at all. So it's not personal in that way. Don't worry. You don't have to do a journey through my trauma fields at all.
Right.
But it's deeply personal, and that each one of these tools that I give you and the whole program that I give you is what I used and continue to use to this day to help me resolve any issue that I'm facing.
Yeah. So when someone's doing an energy medicine yoga, say there's at home, how long are they going to set aside to do a I don't want to call it a session because it doesn't seem like it's a session, but how long should they take each day to do different poses and bring in different energies and create that space?
That's a great question. And that really, it varies widely depending on where you are in your life and what your goals are with the practice. So we have a little technique. It's called the Energy Medicine Yoga Wake Up, and it takes like 2 or 3 minutes. And it's something that we do at the beginning of every class. I do it every morning. I did it before we got on our interview, and it sets your energetic template. And 2 or 3 minutes. So you could do that every day. And then in terms of like doing a longer practice, you can do a full practice in 20 minutes, in 30 minutes. You could practice for an hour, 2 hours, so it's really, if you already have a yoga practice, integrating energy medicine yoga into it is simple. And you're going to find that your yoga practice is going to go through the roof in terms of the benefits that you're going to start to see. And if you don't have a practice yet, that's even better, because you don't have any habits that you need to break, and you can just dive right in with energy medicine yoga. And there, I really do. Some days I will do 10 or 15 minutes if I don't have a lot of time, but I want to do something. I want to get grounded. I want to get my energy coherent. I want to release some of the stress that I've been feeling. Or this is another piece, release some of the stress that I'm not even aware that I'm carrying.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, you can do some practices in 10, 15, 20 minutes and feel the relief and the release of that. And you might end up wanting to do a longer practice. It often happens. Once you roll the mat out, you're like, oh, I'm here. I don't want to go do anything else now. So my suggestion, and I write about this in one of the chapters in this new book, is just make a commitment to yourself.
Yes.
Whatever it is, make a commitment, and it's a commitment to yourself. It's not to me, it's to you. You make that commitment. And, we have a course on manifestation, and there's all these techniques to do. And people are like, well, how many times do I do this? I'm like, well, how much do you want what it is you're trying to manifest?
Right.
How much do you want to be free of your trauma and stress? You have to practice. You cannot think your way out of trauma. It is an embodied somatic release that has to happen here in this body and these energy fields that surround and are within the body. That's where the trauma is held. That's where the stress is held. So that's what you have to do. You have to do that work.
Yeah. I think people, for whatever reason, want the quick and easy. They want it fixed for them, or they want to take as little time as possible and not really looking at the full container, the full container of what really needs to be cleared out, which is at their cellular level, and not just a way of thinking, but a way of being and being in their body. I mean, yoga has transformed so much through the years, where it's yoga, now it's hot yoga, and it's, there's just so many variations, but I love the whole idea of energy medicine yoga, because energy medicine is so critical to our way of life and really cleaning out those cells before we reach a point of disease. And putting it in with yoga is a great way of my daughter-in-law teaches yoga every Tuesday, and so I'm going to get her this book and have her think about it. And she's a pharmacist, so she's going to be coming from a Western field of energy medicine is still kind of new to her, but I think that's what's exciting, right? Is just bringing people in from the Western modalities and the practices, and being able to bring in something like energy medicine and not have it this woo-woo off the charts kind of thing, but something that really is practical and makes a big difference. So are you teaching now? Are you teaching online? How are you getting your message out in addition to your book?
So I have a lot of online classes and courses, and actually for your daughter-in-law, we have an online teacher training that is incredible. It's very interactive, where it's not just, click, you get this course and you go away, we never see you again.
Right.
You become part of our community, and we're there with you the whole way. So I teach. I've got teachers all over the world who teach, and I partner with a lot of different companies. I work with the Shift Network. I'll be doing a course with them in October, which will be actually bringing this book to life, kind of illuminating this book, will be that course. And I teach for other companies as well online. And then on my website, energymedicineyoga.net, you can find all of the classes and courses. And when I'm doing live events, I'm starting to do more and more live events again, which is really fun and wonderful. I'll be at Kripalu in September, and I'm really excited about that. So just kind of teaching everywhere. And, one of the glass half full of, what happened through COVID and all of that is everybody really did turn online. And now I'm able to teach people all over the world. And that's a really beautiful thing. So, you got to take your benefits where you can get them.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's an absolute plus, is people really were able to reach more people. I've worked in 62 countries in the last 30 years, and I am really happy not to be on the airplane nonstop and being able to be home and still teach. And sounds like what you're doing is phenomenal for people to learn and to understand. I thank you so much for being a guest on today's show, and really appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to speak with you as well. And I really just appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.